Welcome back, Cat 37 class. We're going to go over creating boundaries. All right, so let's go ahead and download the file. And let's open it. All right, so this is going to be a short video. Okay, so we're going to be extracting boundaries from surfaces. Okay, so this is the boundary command. All right, so to get to the boundary command, if you don't see it, go to extract. Okay, so let me go back to the notes. So this is extract. If you don't see boundary, go to the drop down here and it'll give you access to boundary. All right, so we're going to use the boundary command to extract part of the or all of the boundary of a surface. You can either do exterior boundary or interior. All right, so let's go and create a boundary off of the first one. Okay, so here's our surface. Let me hide. I'm gonna hide the curves. Oh, actually, that's the color of my mistake. Whoever created this tutorial chose to make the edges white on this part. Okay, which is fine. All right, so let's go ahead and insert our geoset. And okay, right click properties. Okay, so let me pick some colors for my surface, and let me pick cyan for my edges. All right, so I'm going to use, once again, boundary. So if you don't see boundary, go to extract, go to the drop down, and there's boundary. Okay, so click on boundary, and we're going to click on the surface. And you can see it's looking for all the boundaries for you. Okay, so that's one option. Let me hit OK. You can say, hey, I want to keep all of them if you want. Okay. And there it is. It selected all the boundaries. This is also a good way to find a hole in the surface. Sometimes you have these tiny little gaps or holes in the surface, especially when you've been joining surfaces. And one way to find if you have a hole is through boundary. So that's one way to check. Do a boundary on a surface that's made up of a bunch of patches, and if you see a green inside, that means there's a gap or an overlap. Okay, so let's go back and double click. Obviously we see green here because there's this opening, but let's say we only wanted the outside portion. So I can select this vertex and it's only going to keep the outer portion. Okay, and hit OK. So there it is in cyan. Let's go back, double click on boundary. Let's say you wanted to keep only the curved portion of it and leave out the straight portion. So we can now go to a second limit. I'm going to click here where it says second limit. So we pre-selected a limit earlier, right? That corner there. So now we're going to select this second one. So it's removing this portion and keeping the curved portion. If you wanted to flip it, there's a red arrow here that's hard to see. You can flip this so it'll keep the opposite portion. Let's go back to the red arrow, flip it, and hit OK. And see, now it keeps this portion of the boundary. Okay, so why would we only keep a part of the boundary and not all of it? Well, maybe I wanted to extend the surface, and later on we're going to be doing extrapolate. Let me give you a preview of extrapolate. So I can say, hey, I want to extrapolate this boundary on this surface. Whoa, that's way too large, way too much. Let's see, let me go 1 millimeter. I don't know why it's crazy. Okay. Doesn't seem to like it. It's 1 millimeter way too much. Let me cancel this. Let me see what size this is. Maybe this is a very tiny piece. Let me take my calipers and measure this. Well, it's 100 millimeters. Let me cancel. Let me extend only this portion of it instead. Let me double click on boundary, flip it with the arrow. And okay, let's see if I can extend this portion of it. Only the portion we extracted. Extrapolate. Okay. Extrapolate the boundary. There it is. For some reason this time it works. So it's only extrapolating this area. So you can extend the surface as you can see. Because that's extrapolate, and we'll cover that in a later video. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay, so just like the tutorial, we're going to extrapolate. Once again, you can use limits to only extrapolate a portion of it. All right, let's go back. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We're going to use the boundary command on this surface. Okay, so it's selecting the entire boundary. And again, if you see green inside the surface, that's a bad sign. It usually means that there's an overlap or a gap. Okay, so let's say I wanted to keep the portion from here to here. Okay, there it is. I can always flip it if I want to keep the other portion. Let's go back and okay. And there it is. Let's see if I can extrapolate again and I get that big error message I got earlier. I need to extrapolate. What am I going to extrapolate? That second boundary. Okay, as you can see, it's extending it. And we can extend it with tangent continuity, G1, or curvature, G2. So you get a different shape. Okay, so we will be playing with more curvature continuity using extrapolate in a later video. Okay, it looks pretty clean. Okay, so that is boundary. Okay, that's the end of this video.